थोड़ा सा इधर ही रहिएगा।
बात हो गया।
इस समारोह के मुख्य अतिथि माननीय कैबिनेट मंत्री श्री मनसुख मांडविया जी एवं विशिष्ट अतिथि औषध विभाग सचिव श्रीमती एस अपर्णा जी कुछ ही देर में हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं।
और ये तीन है सर। अर्पणा मैम है।
आज के समारोह की विशिष्ट अतिथि औषध विभाग सचिव।
Can you just test my audio? Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear.
आज के समारोह की विशिष्ट अतिथि औषध विभाग सचिव श्रीमती एस अपर्णा जी हमारे साथ जुड़ चुकी हैं। हम उनका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करते हैं।
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
And we will wait for Honorable Minister to join before we start the proceedings.
आज के समारोह की विशिष्ट अतिथि औषध विभाग सचिव श्रीमती एस अपर्णा जी हमारे साथ जुड़ चुकी हैं। हम उनका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं। माननीय कैबिनेट मंत्री जी कुछ ही देर में हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं। इस समारोह के मुख्य अतिथि माननीय कैबिनेट मंत्री श्री मनसुख मांडविया जी कुछ ही देर में हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं। इस समारोह के मुख्य अतिथि माननीय कैबिनेट मंत्री श्री मनसुख मांडविया जी हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं। हम उनका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करते हैं। माननीय मंत्री जी, आपकी आज्ञा हो तो कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ किया जाए।
जी।
धन्यवाद। राष्ट्रीय औषधीय शिक्षा एवं अनुसंधान संस्थान नाइपर S.A.S नगर के लिए अत्यंत गर्व की बात है कि आज आप हम सब भारत के 75वें सालगिरह पर आज़ादी के अमृत महोत्सव को मनाने के लिए एकत्रित हुए हैं। हमारे लिए यह अत्यंत गौरव का विषय है कि इस समारोह के लिए माननीय कैबिनेट मंत्री श्री मनसुख मांडविया जी ने मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में हमारा निमंत्रण स्वीकार करके हमें अत्यंत कृतार्थ किया है। हमारे आज के विशिष्ट अतिथि औषध विभाग सचिव श्रीमती S. अपर्णा जी का भी नाइपर S.A.S नगर निमंत्रण स्वीकार करने के लिए आभारी है। मैं निदेशक महोदय, संकाय अध्यक्ष महोदय, कुल सचिव महोदय, विभिन्न विभागों के प्रमुख, हमारे विशेष अतिथिगण, नाइपर के अधिकारी, कर्मचारी, शिक्षकगण, छात्र छात्राएं एवं सदस्य प्रेस मीडिया का हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ। आदरणीय श्रीमान जी, आपकी गरिमाई उपस्थिति के लिए नाइपर S.A.S नगर आपका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता है। अत्यंत प्रसन्नता के साथ हम स्वागत करते हैं भारत के रसायन एवं उर्वरक मंत्री, स्वास्थ्य एवं परिवार कल्याण मंत्री माननीय श्री मनसुख मांडविया जी का। आप जैसे बहुआयामी व्यक्तित्व के धनी व्यक्ति का इस कार्यक्रम में सम्मिलित होना हम सब के लिए अत्यधिक प्रसन्नता का विषय है। आपने अपने व्यस्त कार्यक्रम में भी हमारे कार्यक्रम को सुशोभित करना स्वीकार किया है, इसके लिए हम आपके हृदय से आभारी हैं। हमारे यशस्वी माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के शब्दों में आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव यानी आज़ादी की ऊर्जा का अमृत, आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव यानी स्वतंत्रता सेनानियों से प्रेरणाओं का अमृत, आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव यानी नए विचारों का अमृत, नए संकल्पों का अमृत, आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव यानी आत्मनिर्भरता का अमृत। अब मैं निदेशक महोदय, संकाय अध्यक्ष महोदय एवं कुल सचिव महोदय से निवेदन करती हूँ कि दीप प्रज्वलन कर कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करें। धन्यवाद। कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं सुश्री मुबाशरा, आनंदिता, जसकिरत, अभियंता एवं सुमी को माँ सरस्वती वंदना के लिए मंच पर आमंत्रित करती हूँ।
हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। तू स्वर की देवी ये संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा हर गीत तुझसे। तू स्वर की देवी ये संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा हर गीत तुझसे। हम हैं अकेले हम हैं अधूरे, तेरी शरण में हमें प्यार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। मुनियों ने समझी गुनियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा पुराणों की बानी। मुनियों ने समझी गुनियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा पुराणों की बानी। हम भी तो समझे हम भी तो जाने, विद्या का हमको वरदान दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ।
मैं निदेशक महोदय को स्वागत भाषण के लिए आमंत्रित करती हूँ तथा आग्रह करती हूँ कि वह सचिव औषध विभाग भारत सरकार को आमंत्रित करें।
Very good morning to all. Honorable Union Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizer and Health and Family Welfare, Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji, Madam S. Aparna, Secretary, Department of Pharmaceutical and Chairperson, Apex Council, NIPERS, Shri Rajneesh Tingal, Joint Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals, eminent speakers, my colleagues in faculty, staffs of NIPERS, dear students, guests, member of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I feel inordinately happy to stand before you and represent the vibrant scientific community of NIPERS. It is an honor for me to welcome you to NIPER Mohali. I am very happy to announce that the NIPER week is being celebrated as a part of the Azadi ki Amrit Mahotsav. On behalf of all 7 NIPERs, I express my sincere gratitude to you for gracing this occasion. Rapid strides have been made in the field of pharmaceutical science in our country over the past 75 years. During this week-long celebration, we shall be recalling the efforts made and gather strength to make improved plans. When the country is celebrating 75 years of independence, Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav provides us with the perfect platform to introspect on our pharmaceutical heritage as well as look ahead at the prospect available at the Indian pharmaceutical sector. The support of Honorable Minister and indeed your presence here today, sir, despite your highly demanding schedule, is pillar of our strength from our belief and efforts. I feel confident in assuring the Honorable Minister of the dedicated commitment of all NIPERs towards establishment of Atmanirbhar Bharat in the pharmaceutical sector. We will work together with the domestic pharmaceutical industry to adopt an innovation-driven drug discovery and development program. This will help the country to meet the aspirations of its citizens towards the affordable health care. The week-long lecture series, Story of Pharma at 75, Future Opportunities, focuses on the history of pharmaceutical sciences in India, the current trends, and the emerging roadmaps. This lecture will be delivered by eminent academicians and recognized industry leaders. The value and worth of the NIPER brand will be critically analyzed by our alumni, It will help us in strengthening our strengths and carrying out course correction. In addition, exhibitions have been arranged. We have a gallery on luminaries of pharmaceutical education and sciences in our Pharmaceutical Heritage Center. In association with the Archaeological Survey of India, this exhibition also features photographs of 28 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We have also arranged for the visit of locals to the medicinal plants on campus, which maintains our traditional wealth of medicinal plants. I sincerely invite you all present here and those watching the program online to please watch these exhibitions. I am thankful to my colleagues at all 7 NIPERs for their collaboration and participation in the program. The program has been carefully drafted after regular discussion with Madam Aparna, Secretary of Department of Pharmaceutical and Chairperson Apex Council NIPERs. We are sincerely grateful for her keen interest in assuring the success of the iconic program. I request her to address the NIPER community on this occasion. Madam, I invite you now to share your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you. Honorable Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers, Minister for Health and Family Welfare, Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji, the directors of all the NIPERs present here on this occasion, faculty of all NIPERs, staff, students, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. The 75th year of independence marks a watershed in our history, and Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav is an effort to associate every Indian in this proud moment. Under the guidance of the Honorable Minister, Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji, it has been decided to celebrate the achievements of the pharmaceutical sector over the past 75 years as part of this Mahotsav. India rightly deserves the title Pharmacy of the World, as we provide affordable generics of high quality to almost every country in the world. Medicines and vaccines made in India have contributed to improved quality of life and lower spending on medicines, not just in India, but across the globe. In the past few months, we have also witnessed the great strides made in our national COVID vaccination program. However, new trends are emerging. The disease profile is also changing with economic growth, lifestyle changes, and demographic evolution. The ability to innovate in products such as biologics, biosimilars, gene and cell therapy, precision medicine, as well as in processes such as continuous flow technology, green manufacturing, small batch processing, will be important so that our Indian pharmaceutical sector can continue to hold its leadership position globally in the years to come. The increasing application of AI tools, data analytics in pharma manufacturing, drug development, and clinical trials also offer great opportunities for the Indian pharmaceutical sector. In this new phase, as the country enters the next golden period, it has become imperative that industry must innovate and researchers must collaborate. Hence, NIPERs, in fact, under the guidance of the Honorable Minister, have designed a common research program so as to focus their energies and efforts on what will matter the most for our country. Institutes like NIPERs have the responsibility of providing the talent and the direction needed for transforming the Indian pharmaceutical sector to meet the changing healthcare needs of our country and the globe. This lecture series, organized by NIPER at S.A.S. Nagar, is intended to expose the students and pharmaceutical experts to a fine array of very experienced speakers from industry and academia. I am honored to inform the Honorable Minister that the 7 NIPERs and their directors have worked together to put together a very distinguished list of speakers who will be addressing these lecture series over the next 5 days. Partner institutions under CSIR as well as NIPER alumni will also share their views on the road ahead for the Indian pharmaceutical sector. Friends, I hope that this series of talks will encourage students and faculties across all 7 NIPERs and all other participants. I do hope that we will all strive in our common mission to provide greater quality and affordability of medicines for our patients, to enhance drug security for India, and to improve global competitiveness of the industry. I do hope that the glorious occasion of the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav, will inspire us all to rededicate ourselves to nation building in the sphere of our respective action. I acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Panda, faculty of NIPER Mohali, as well as all other directors of NIPERs, staff in the NIPER family, for their efforts in organizing this lecture series. I also thank Honorable Minister Shri Mandaviya Sahib for his gracious presence and his continued guidance and leadership to the efforts of our department. We look forward to hearing your inspiring words, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for your inspiring speech, and we'll follow your guidance. It is now with immense pleasure now that I invite the Honorable Union Minister Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji to say a few words. He is also the Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare. Honorable Mandaviya ji is a dynamic leader and he is a visionary. His progressive, creative and thoughtful decisions are helping all citizens in safely passing through the pandemic period. He has been a guiding light to us. We consider ourselves fortunate that he has agreed to grace this occasion. It is a mark for his commitment to NIPERs and the pharmaceutical sector. I request you, sir, to please address our gathering and inaugurate the lecture series as a part of the celebration of Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav.
आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव जब देश मना रहा है और सारे वर्ष में सभी मिनिस्ट्री के द्वारा सरकार की ओर से अपने अपने मिनिस्ट्री में कोई न कोई कार्यक्रम आयोजित हो रहा, इस सिलसिले में फार्मास्यूटिकल डिपार्टमेंट द्वारा नाइपर के माध्यम से 5 दिन तक नाइपर वीक मनाया जा रहा है। उस अवसर पर उपस्थित सेक्रेटरी फार्मा, सभी नाइपर के डायरेक्टर, उपस्थित स्टूडेंट भाइयों बहन, देश आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहा है। 75 इयर्स में देश ने कई क्षेत्र में बहुत कुछ प्रगति की, हम आगे बढ़े। विशेष करके फार्मा सेक्टर में हम फार्मेसी ऑफ वर्ल्ड के रूप में उभरे हैं। आज जेनरिक मेडिसिन में दुनिया में हम लार्जेस्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं। दुनिया में 6 टैबलेट वर्ल्ड वाइड लोग खाते हैं, उसमें से एक इंडिया में बनी हुई जेनरिक मेडिसिन होती है। यूएसए में 4 टैबलेट वहां के नागरिक लेते हैं, उसमें से एक इंडिया में बनी हुई जेनरिक मेडिसिन है। 150 से अधिक देशों में इंडिया की ओर से दुनिया में जेनरिक मेडिसिन की सप्लाई हो रही है, एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा। ऐसी स्थिति में नाइपर का रोल हमारी इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और हमारी सब नाइपर और नाइपर में चल रहे रिसर्च, नाइपर में पढ़ाए जा रहे सिलेबस इस लेवल का हो जिसके आधार पर हम नेशन और दुनिया को कंट्रीब्यूट कर सके। नाइपर केवल रिसर्च करे इतना ही नहीं, लेकिन इंडस्ट्रीज को सॉल्यूशन भी दे। कई एमएसएमई इंडस्ट्रीज हो, फार्मा इंडस्ट्रीज हो, उसके पास रिसर्च लैब नहीं होती है, या तो कोई रिसर्च करना है, कोई प्रोजेक्ट देना है तो खर्च नहीं कर पाएंगे। ऐसी स्थिति में क्या नाइपर इनिशिएटिव लेके इंडस्ट्रीज को सॉल्यूशन दे सकते हैं क्या? 75 साल के बाद हमें मॉडल बदलना है। आज तक नॉट ओनली फॉर नाइपर फार्मा इंडस्ट्रीज, सभी एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट, रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट में सरकार सहयोग कर रही है, सरकार फंडिंग कर रही है, सरकार ग्रांट दे रही है। क्या 75 आजादी के 75वें साल में अमृत महोत्सव पर हम ये निर्धार करें कि जब देश आजादी का 1 शतक मना रहा हो, 100 इयर्स पूरा किया हो, उस वक्त हमें फार्मा सेक्टर को कहां ले जाना है? और भारत सरकार की ओर से, मिनिस्ट्री की ओर से उसके लिए कोई विजन बने, एक बात है। क्या मेरी नाइपर, मेरे रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट, मेरे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट 25 साल का अपना विजन बना सकते हैं क्या? 25 साल में हम मेडिकल डिवाइस सेक्टर में यहां है, यहां पहुंचेंगे, ये करेंगे। फॉर्मुलेशन और रिसर्च में, एपीआई में हम रिसर्च में आज यहां है। देश की स्थिति ये है, आज हम एपीआई में दुनिया पर डिपेंडेंट है। या तो फार्मा में इंडिया के नाम से मेडिसिन का पेटेंट कम है, क्या हम पेटेंटेड मेडिसिन इंडिया में डेवलप करें? इस टाइप का रिसर्च करके हमारे इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ पार्टनरशिप कर सकते हैं क्या? मुझे लगता है कि हमें संकल्प करना होगा कि हम जब 1 शतक मनाएंगे आजादी का, उस अवसर पर 25 साल में हमें इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ कैसे जोड़े, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट को, रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट को सरकार की ओर से फंड मिलते रहे, हम काम करते रहे। क्या हम रिवर्स मॉडल तो दुनिया में विद्यमान है, इस मॉडल पर नहीं काम कर सकते? क्या हम सेल्फ सस्टेन नहीं हो सकते? क्या हम अपने इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ पार्टनरशिप साझी करके, इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ मिलके रिसर्च और इंस्टीट्यूट और इंडस्ट्रीज को जोड़े, इंडस्ट्रीज उसके लिए फंडिंग करे, हमारे स्टूडेंट इंडस्ट्रीज में जाके प्रोजेक्ट का इंप्लीमेंटेशन करे, रिसर्च हमारे यहां हो और रिसर्चर को भी उसमें पार्टनरशिप मिले। पेटेंटेड ड्रग्स, पेटेंट कोई साइंटिस्ट कराए, कोई इंस्टीट्यूट कराए, उसमें रिसर्च करने वाले मेरे साइंटिस्ट का भी हिस्सा हो, हमारे इंस्टीट्यूट का भी हिस्सा हो, उसकी भी पार्टनरशिप हो, उसमें से रॉयल्टी की कमाई हो, वो हमारे इंस्टीट्यूट को भी मिले। दुनिया में इस टाइप का मॉडल नया नहीं है, लेकिन ये दिशा में हमें जल्दी सोचने की आवश्यकता है। हमें हमारे देश की रिक्वायरमेंट रिसर्च की पूरी करनी है। आज हम फॉर्मुलेशन में तो है आगे, एपीआई बाहर से लाते हैं, इंटरमीडिएट बाहर से लाते हैं और यहाँ हम फॉर्मुलेशन करके जेनेरिक मेडिसिन बना के दुनिया में सप्लाई करते हैं। इट्स ओके। आज हम वैक्सीन में, आपने देखा हम कैसे आगे बढ़े, सरकार की ओर से एफर्ट लिया जा रहा है। और एक अच्छा एग्जांपल आपके सामने है, जब देश में कोरोना की फर्स्ट वेव आई और लॉकडाउन लगा, उस वक्त प्रधानमंत्री जी ने गरीब कल्याण पैकेज दिया था और गरीब कल्याण पैकेज में 900 करोड़ रुपीस वैक्सीन रिसर्च के लिए रखा था। सरकार की ओर से कोऑर्डिनेशन हुआ, फार्मा मिनिस्ट्री, डीबीटी मिनिस्ट्री, हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री, सब मिनिस्ट्री ने साथ में मिलके काम किया, प्राइवेट प्लेयर के साथ में मिलके काम किया और हिंदुस्तान में पहली बार हुआ। दुनिया में कोई वैक्सीन का रिसर्च होता था 5 साल से लेके 10 साल के बाद ये वैक्सीन इंडिया में आती थी। लेकिन एक एफर्ट सही दिशा में होता है तो इंडिया में ब्रेन और मैन पावर की कभी कमी नहीं है। इंडिया पर और इंडिया की क्षमता पर भरोसा करने की आवश्यकता थी, जो मोदी जी ने देश के साइंटिस्ट पर, देश के इंस्टीट्यूट पर, आप सब लोगों पर भरोसा किया और आउटपुट ये निकला कि दुनिया के साथ हमने भी वैक्सीन का रिसर्च किया, वैक्सीन का प्रोडक्शन किया और पार्टनरशिप में किया। उसमें आईसीएमआर पार्टनर रही कोवैक्सीन प्रोडक्शन में। तो आज मैं कई दिन पहले आईसीएमआर में गया था, मुझे बहुत साइंटिस्ट बहुत गौरव से बता रहे थे कि साहब हमने पहली बार रॉयल्टी में से हिस्सा मिला, उसकी कमाई में से हिस्सा मिला और कोवैक्सीन का प्रोडक्शन हुआ, सप्लाई हुआ, उसकी कमाई हुई, उससे आईसीएमआर को भी उसका हिस्सा मिला, उसका प्रॉफिट मिला। मैंने कहा कि क्या हम इस टाइप का रिसर्च करके आईसीएमआर अपने क्षमता के आधार पर अपना फाइनेंशियल स्ट्रांग नहीं हो सकती है क्या? ऐसा ही हमारी नहीं पर देश में 10,000 से ज्यादा एमएसएमई है। सब लोगों के पास रिसर्च की कैपेसिटी नहीं है, या तो लेब की इस लेवल का काम करने की कैपेसिटी नहीं है, लेकिन उसको सॉल्यूशन चाहिए। वैसे ही अगले दिनों में मेडिकल डिवाइस एक बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है इंडिया में और हमने 4 मेडिकल डिवाइस पार्क भी दिया है। मेडिकल डिवाइस पार्क के साथ हमारे नाइप पर जुड़ जाए और उसमें मेडिकल डिवाइस पार्क में मेडिकल डिवाइस इंडस्ट्रीज को हम सपोर्ट में लगे, उसके साथ कोलैबोरेशन करें, उसके साथ पार्टनरशिप करें और हम उसको सॉल्यूशन दें और हम इनकम करें। और ये मॉडल इंडिया में साबित हो चुका है। यही केमिकल्स एंड पेट्रोकेमिकल्स हमारा डिपार्टमेंट है, उसमें सिपेट है। मैंने एक बार कहा भी था कि मेरे नाइपर और सिपेट के डायरेक्टर साथ में बैठे। 7 साल पहले नाइपर ये सिपेट भारत सरकार के फंड से, भारत सरकार के ग्रांट से चलती थी और एक 6 कुल मिला के 42 सिपेट के सेंटर है। एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव एफर्ट हुआ, पेट्रोकेमिकल्स प्लास्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ जुड़ गया, इंडस्ट्रीज को सॉल्यूशन दिया, इंडस्ट्रीज का प्रोजेक्ट लिया, इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ काम किया। आज ये सारी हमारी सिपेट सेल्फ सस्टेन है, इतना ही नहीं प्रॉफिटेबल है। आज भारत सरकार के 1 रुपया का भी ग्रांट की आवश्यकता नहीं है और उसके पास हुए फंड से वो रिसर्च भी करते हैं, नए इंस्टीट्यूट भी ओपन करते हैं, अपने स्टूडेंट को सुविधाएं भी देते हैं। एक मॉडल इंडिया में डेवलप हो चुका है। ये मॉडल में नाइपर में डेवलप करना चाहता हूं। 25 साल का आपके जो 5 दिन में लेक्चर सीरीज होगी, ये लेक्चर की भी क्वालिटी और कंटेंट होना चाहिए। आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव पर हम निर्धार करते हैं, संकल्प करते हैं कि 25 साल में हम हमारे नाइपर को कहां ले जाएंगे, हम हमारा रिसर्च को कहां ले जाएंगे, हम हमारे स्टूडेंट की क्वालिटी को कहां ले जाएंगे, हम कितना पेपर्स पब्लिश करेंगे, हम कितने पीएचडी स्टूडेंट को पीएचडी स्टूडेंट बनाएंगे। ये सारा निर्धार और संकल्प की बात उसमें होनी चाहिए। और लेक्चर सीरीज समाप्त हो उस वक्त ये 25 साल का रोड मैप हमारे सामने आना चाहिए और ये रोड मैप की एक सूची, एक रोड मैप का डॉक्यूमेंट मिनिस्ट्री तक पहुंचना चाहिए। यही उपलब्धता और यही ऐसे काम का कुल मिला के नतीजा होता है। केवल हमारे यहाँ लेक्चर हो जाए और सरकार ने बताया है कि हम एक लेक्चर सीरीज कोऑर्डिनेट करें, लेक्चर सीरीज हो गए, आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना दिया, जी नहीं। ऐसी संकीर्ण बात और भावना से काम करने वाली यह सरकार नहीं है। मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में देश बदल रहा है, देश आगे बढ़ रहा है। हमारा फार्मा सेक्टर को भी हमें बदलना है। हम जहां है वहां से आगे बढ़ना है। हम रिसर्च में पीछे हैं, जैसा हम फॉर्मुलेशन में आगे हैं ऐसा हम रिसर्च में पीछे हैं। ये पीछे से आगे कैसे होना है उसके लिए रोड मैप ए लेक्चर से निकल के आना चाहिए। हमें इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ कोलैबोरेशन में कहां है, क्या हमारा रोड मैप है? 25 साल में हम इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ जुड़ के सेल्फ सस्टेन मॉडल बना के हम एक ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूट के रूप में उभरे जो हमारा नॉलेज दुनिया के साथ भी हम शेयर कर सके। दुनिया भी नाइपर के पास और दुनिया भी अपने रिसर्च फेलो को इंडिया में हमारे नाइपर में भेजे। देखो इंडिया में नाइपर क्या कर रही है, इस लेवल पर और इस हाइट पर मैं नाइपर को देखना चाहता हूं। आज आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव पर हमारा नाइपर वीक में इस लेक्चर सीरीज को मैं इनॉग्रेट करने के अवसर पर, प्रारंभ कराने के अवसर पर अति खुशी महसूस करता हूं और अपेक्षा करता हूं कि हम मैंने जो अभी दिशा निर्देश किया है ये दिशा निर्देश पर आगे बढ़ के एक डॉक्यूमेंट तैयार करें और यही डॉक्यूमेंट पे आज हम नाइपर में हैं, कल हम ना भी हो। आज मैं मंत्री हूं, कल मैं मंत्री ना भी हूं। आज आप वहां ऑफिसर हैं, कल आप वहां ऑफिसर नहीं होंगे, प्रोफेसर नहीं होंगे। आज स्टूडेंट है, कल वो वहां स्टूडेंट नहीं होंगे। लेकिन हम एक ऐसा पाथ तैयार करके जाए जिस पाथ पर नाइपर आगे चलती रहे और 5 साल के बाद, 10 साल के बाद जब हमारे यहाँ नए लोग इंस्टीट्यूट में बैठ के जब बातचीत करते हो या तो अगले कार्यक्रम के लिए प्लानिंग करते हो, उस वक्त उसका एक टॉकिंग पॉइंट होना चाहिए कि आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव पर 5 दिन की एक लेक्चर सीरीज हुई थी और उसमें से बात निकली थी। उसके आधार पर हमें इस तरह से आगे बढ़ना है। ये आउटपुट के रूप में मैं देखना चाहता हूँ सभी नाइपर को, सभी नाइपर्स, डायरेक्टर्स को, फैकल्टीज को, आज इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़े हुए सभी इंडस्ट्रीज प्लेयर को और सभी को मेरी ओर से हार्दिक हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir, for your stimulating and motivational words. It is really delighting that you have motivated us and guided us. Your presence here has been highly encouraging. I am sure I speak for all NIPers when I say that we will follow your guiding words for the betterment of pharmaceutical sciences in the country. Thank you, sir.
अब मैं कुल सचिव महोदय को धन्यवाद ज्ञापन के लिए आमंत्रित करती हूँ।
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Cabinet Minister, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Shri Mansukh Mandaviya ji, respected Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals and Chairperson, Apex Council, NIPERS, Madam S. Aparna ji, respected Joint Secretary, NIPERS, Shri Rajneesh Tengal ji, respected Director, Professor Dulal Panda ji, respected Dean, Professor Rahul Jain ji, and our most valued invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of my institution and all the members present, would like to thank our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Mandsukh Mandaviya ji, for accepting our invitation and gracing the occasion by his valuable presence. Sir, your kind presence today in this function has immensely enhanced its importance. I would take this opportunity to express my deep regards to our guest of honor, Ms. S. Aparna ji, Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals, for kindly accepting our invitation and being a constant motivator, mentor, and guiding force in all our endeavors to excel in the field of pharmaceutical education and research. I, on behalf of all NIPER family, would like to give special thanks to Shri Rajneesh Tingle ji, Joint Secretary NIPERS, for his continuous support, administrative advices, guiding ministerial approvals and sanction for all NIPERS. I further pass on my gratitude to our Honorable Director, Professor Dulal Panda ji, for his continuous support and confidence in us and for all words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within us. We will always remain grateful to him and we thank him for being with us today. A big thank you to respected Dean NIPER, Professor Rahul Jain ji, and all faculty members who have been put in efforts towards this special day. I want to extend my generous thanks to respected directors, registrars, delegates of other NIPERs for such an appreciating involvement. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for our audience who are present here as well as attending this event online. I may like to express our sincere thanks to members of media fraternity for giving an excellent coverage to this NIPER Week event. I sincerely thank our ministry who has assigned us this NIPER Week to showcase our potential towards Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav. During this NIPER Week, we will be conducting various online and offline events such as Industrial Leadership Conclave for the role of pharmaceutical industry in the development of India since independence, Popular Science Lecture by Academia and our superannuated faculty, Alumni Interaction expressing their experience at NIPER and in the real world, etc. And offline events will include exhibition for History of Pharmacy at Pharmaceuticals Heritage Center of the Institute, exhibition at our medicinal garden where medicinal plants will be provided to visitors as part of promoting the greener India. I wish to express my deep gratitude to all the professional dignitaries of the pharmaceutical industry, BOG members, our superannuated faculty, NIPER alumni, who have accepted our invitation and agreed to spare their precious time and vast knowledge to make this event a grand success. I thank all the NIPER team members to think of this beautiful idea and their firm belief to make it happen successfully in this NIPER Week. It is worth mentioning that event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheel starts rolling months in advance. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated, dedicated committee members and volunteers. I thank everyone for their involvement and their willingness to take on the responsibility for completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. I, on behalf of NIPER S.A.S. Nagar and the entire sporting team and special guests in the audience, let me call it Fraternity of Pharmaceutical Sciences here together, and on my own behalf extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
धन्यवाद। आप सभी से अनुरोध है कि राष्ट्रगान के लिए खड़े हों।
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा। तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तब तब जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
मैं उद्घाटन समारोह की समाप्ति पर उपस्थित सभी अतिथिगण का आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ। इसके उपरांत व्याख्यान श्रृंखला का आयोजन किया गया है जिसमें अनेक प्रख्यात वक्ता अपने विचार व्यक्त करेंगे। आप सभी से निवेदन है कि आप इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल हों। धन्यवाद।
We should connect now with that Dr. Modi. We should connect. Manish, we should connect Dr. Modi now. Dear friends, our inauguration program just got over and we are now starting the lecture series. We have 4 distinguished speakers today, starting with Dr. Rustam Modi, Dr. Girish Sahani, Dinesh Doa, and Professor V.K. Paul. Professor V.K. Paul is going to give the keynote address. As usual, we are starting 15 minutes late, but we are starting now. Dr. Rustam Modi is going to give the first lecture. Has Dr. Modi joined? Has he joined? I request Dr. Modi to join. Has he joined? Good afternoon, Dr. Modi. Welcome you. I will just give a very brief biodata of Dr. Modi, and he is highly known in this country, so it does not require much of introduction. Dr. Rustam Modi is a biotechnologist with over 34 years of biopharmaceutical industry experience. He handled wide-ranging of operation in the capacity of head, research and development, manufacturing and quality, hands-on experience in developing 8 biosimilar products and 2 vaccines from concept to commercialization in India, 2 of which are approved in the US, Europe and Japan, and 3 of which are first to market. The total revenues from the commercialized product is valued over US 250 million. Currently handling research and development of 3 biosimilar products in various stages of development and 3 novel biologics. Proven track record in creating R&D platforms and robust product pipeline in companies without any previous capability, ability to direct projects on a fast track with strong focus on productivity, intellectual property and product quality that meets global regulatory standards and generic competitions. Excellent communication skill that promote cross-functional and multidisciplinary participation across global teams. I welcome Dr. Rustam Modi to give the talk The title of his talk is Recent Trends in Biopharma Industry. Dr. Modi, please start.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My audio passing through. I mean, are you able to hear me? Anybody confirm? Microphone. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon to everyone. I hope I'm audible. I'm going to put off so that my bandwidth can improve. So I'm stop sharing the video. So thank you so much for this inviting me to this session on Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav. It's a great privilege to be at NIPER. This is my first time that I will be speaking at NIPER seminars, and I really hope that this week brings for the students a wonderful exposure to various scientific lectures coming from experts. I would like to thank Professor Pandaji, Director, NIPER, for giving this opportunity to me, and I hope I can possibly relay some understanding to the students regarding biopharma, the opportunities that lies ahead, and give a kind of a glimpse on what the recent trends are in biopharma industry. So I am basically heading the biologics division at Sun, and Sun, as you know, is the #1 pharma company in India. I have about 35 years in the experience in the field of vaccines and biosimilars. So whatever I'm going to say is over the decades of experience in this industry, biopharma industry, and how it has come suddenly out of the nowhere to what has transformed the industry. With this, I will move to my first slide. Next slide, please. So this is just a glimpse on the Sun Pharma kind of features about the Sun Pharma. It's a US ranked 10th in the US generic market, and in India it's a #1 pharma company, as I mentioned. It has a very good presence in the emerging markets, the rest of the world too. Manufacturing footholds are 44 manufacturing sites, and It has a presence over 100 countries, employee numbers of 37,000. It has multiple manufacturing facilities and has a lot of US FDA approved plants. Genetics, inorganics, and APIs, and now also biosimilars. Move to the next slide. So, how is India doing? India has done tremendously in the last few years in terms of biotechnology. There have been 2,500 biotech companies in India. And just last year, there has been startups of 850 additional biotech companies. So last year, emergence of biotechnology in a big way. It has been ranked second in Asia Pacific and ninth globally. 1 new year has been the target, with 60% of the world children administered. That is a tremendous achievement. Success of COVID vaccine has spurred many companies to enter biotechnology, and I will give you a kind of a glimpse on that a little later. One of the only 6 countries that have encoded the human genome, so you can imagine the influence that will have. India has the largest number of biosimilars in the world, 127 approved. This, in my view, is a tremendous synergy. Industry, regulatory agencies, clinical expertise, scientific strengths, manufacturing capabilities, entrepreneurship, and everything. Because having the most biosimilars in the world has come through a kind of combination of efforts in various agencies across India. Biotechnology is likely to increase at a rate of 21%. Can you imagine that? To about 100 billion by 2025. These are the figures that are coming from leading market agencies. Come to the next slide. So I will not just touch upon what this various things have to say. The COVID-19 tracker, it says 17 COVID vaccines have been approved in India. This is by far any country. 10 COVID vaccines in early phase of development. 13 COVID vaccines in clinical phases. These are in addition to the 7 which are approved. And 15 COVID vaccines will be made in India. Can you imagine what India has come about for the global presence in biotechnology? This is all because of a sound scientific cornerstone that has been laid in biopharma, and many companies are now getting into more and more into biotechnology, given the success of the COVID vaccines development. Also, India has by far the maximum number of biosimilars in the development, 257 in the last count, which is very close to China. So we are ranked second in the world. Going to the next slide. What are biosimilars and how do they help? This is for the students especially. I'm sure you hear the word generic pharmaceuticals all the time. So biosimilars are nothing but generics of biologic products which are on the market. Now let us look at some of the biologic products that are on the market. Here I have put some names over here. Enbrel, Humira, Remicade, Herceptin, Erbitux, Xolair. And look at the cost of each of these products. Now compare this cost per dose versus cost per month that a patient has to incur versus an average monthly salary in India. Can anybody afford any of these drugs, biologics? And these are, believe me, all of them are life-saving drugs or meant for chronic diseases. So for an average Indian, it is impossible to get hold of these biologics, which are so important for overcoming chronic diseases as well as in oncology, where eventually it can lead to mortality. So you can see less than 2% can actually afford a couple of drugs, and probably less than 0.08% could afford a few of them. Okay, so this is by far reason being that in US the money is being paid by the government. The bottom slide shows, or by private insurance companies, and very little is going out of the pocket of the payer. Whereas in India, it's just the reverse. Most of the money is paid by out of pocket, very little by insurance, and government also has contributed to some extent. So with this, it has become very important that India takes a lead in biosimilar industry, and that's what is actually happening. And the government has been very much in support of this, has made extremely good regulatory agency scrutiny has been very good over the products, and none of the products that are on the market, 1.7 of them, have really created kind of major issues with relations to safety and efficacy. Going to the next slide. So here is another kind of a look at where the future holds in the biopharma market. Taking the left bottom corner, the pharma market segmentation. If you look at a few years back, let's say 2001, the majority of the market was dictated by small molecule drugs, the one shown in violet. Whereas the one shown in maroon shows only 20% of the global market was dictated by biopharmaceuticals. The trend has reversed. In terms of value, now by 2025, 70% of the market will be dictated by biopharma, and the market from small molecular or API drugs is going to shrink. The one on the right side shows that small molecule market share globally has been fairly large, whereas the monoclonal antibodies, therapeutic proteins have been quite small, and still smaller is monoclonal antibodies, and biosimilar is just a small nib in the bud. However, this scenario is has changed tremendously. In vaccines, after the outcome of developments that has happened in the country, this segment which you see in the light green color has suddenly expanded. And India sees a revenue earning of $11 billion coming from just COVID vaccine developments by 2025. That is simply amazing. And also, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, they have as 56 now that is something staggering. It has never been in ever that a single drug can but products that are on the market, 7 of them are biopharmaceuticals. So it's also not just the number of drugs that are on the market, but also the revenue that comes from these drugs has been tremendously great. Going to the next slide. This is just for students how a biopharmaceutical is made, or a recombinant drugs are prepared. You will see these are various technologies that have been actually looked by various companies. On the first left-hand side top picture, where the cells are cultivated in roll-up. This is a very old technologies which has been replaced by cultivating them in a fermenter. So you can see those two pictures here. So this has become now a leading way of producing biopharmaceuticals. But there are other options that some companies have tried, such as algae or kind of expressing it in plants, such as the BT cotton, you already know, or the maize plants with toxin in it, which kind of prevents it from infections by pest. And also expression in the milk has been also tried out, and there has been success on such kind of ways. The product has been actually purified from milk, just as it is purified from culture broth in the case of fermenters. As you can see on the right, various efforts also has been done in transgenic animals, such as over here, chicks are shown with a green feed, where green fluorescent protein has been shown. And such in the same way, eggs have been kind of manipulated in such a way that the therapeutic protein can be expressed in egg, because egg has a lot of protein content in it. Going to the next slide. This is just understanding on how biologics can be kind of segmented. If you can see over here, the key areas are vaccines, plasma-derived products, toxins, recombinant therapeutic proteins, monoclonal antibodies. This has been the standard ones. Now in the biopharmaceuticals, I will just look at these two products categories, recombinant therapeutic proteins and monoclonal antibodies. If you look at them, first of all, the originator products come to the market. And once the limiting patent expires, or once the product gets off the patent, the biosimilars can reach the market. Now, this comes from two major platforms, the microbial platform and the mammalian platform. And apart from these categories, there are some new developments that has happened, such as the chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy or the CAR therapy. The two products have been already approved, Kimbria and Yescarta, and these actually are targeting some of the cancer, acute cancers such as lymphocytic leukemia and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And it's a remarkable therapy that has come by, and this kind of approach is very unique to the pharma industry. Until now, we have always heard of APIs which are made in bulk quantities and formulated, and these drugs are given to millions of patients all over the world, with some amounts of adverse events reported and some amounts of safety issues reported. But here is a drug which is actually specialized or made for a single patient, which means that the T cells from the patient has been taken and genetically engineered and then allowed to propagate outside the body and then put back with a kind of a transform function which then attacks the cancer cells. This is a fantastic new technologies that are gaining more and more attention, and Indian companies are drawn into it. The second one is gene therapy, and this you must have heard on the TV news and others. A product like Zolgensma, okay, and Luxturna. These are actually products that are developed by a company like Novartis for spinal muscular atrophy. This is a very rare genetic disorders seen in children born to parents with a defective gene. And these babies have no way to make certain protein, very essential for neurotransmission and proper nervous functions, neuron functions. And this has to be corrected. This genetic disorder has to be corrected. And this is done by administering this gene therapy. And this is one of the costliest product ever on the market today. A single vial, as you well know, that has been on TV also, 16 crores for saving a life of a child. So 16 crores is what, and this is without taxes, is the kind of a cost of a single therapy. Now this is because these therapies are made in a lab with a very special attentions to how it can be administered and for safe kind of efficacious for the patients. The other areas of new things are stem cell therapies, which is also called as regenerative medicines, using stem cells derived from bone marrow. And another good area is the 3D organ printing. Actually, skin cells can be printed to make a skin out of just like you print even a 3D kind of materials, you can also print organs now using a 3D organ technology. And the last one is CRISPR gene editing, where actually any deficiencies of gene or some quality. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here is how small look at 180 Daltons, so small. And anywhere you make this drug, anywhere in the world, it comes out to be exactly like aspirin because it's so small, it's tiny. But as you go bigger in biopharmaceuticals, just like taking an insulin shot, insulin is much bigger than aspirin, and yet it is quite complex. And you need to be very careful when you deal with large complex molecules. Monoclonal antibodies provide a major segment of biopharmaceuticals, and you can see how large they are compared to the small molecule. And the largest is among the factor 8, which has about 280,000 Dalton. So as the molecule size increases, the complexity of these molecules increase. And therefore, these molecules have to be looked into from very different analytical techniques, and you have to be extremely careful during the processing of these molecules, because a small change or small deviation in the process can lead to a tremendous change in its functionality or its safety. Going to the next slide. So here is, can you go further? Yeah. So what is a biosimilar like? So biosimilar is like copying monolism. It's like you cannot use a blue color or you cannot use a paintbrush. Can you still make a bonanza? That's exactly what has been kind of considered over here. So the reason is this, this you cannot use or that you cannot use is generally dictated by the various patents other than the molecule. So there are patents, for example, on the process, there are patents on the formulation, there are patents the mode of action. So various patents are still prevalent, and that makes biosimilar to come to the market with great difficulty because you have to surmount these patents in order to get the product onto the market without getting without infringing the originator company. Going to the next slide. So how is it produced? So here is a schematic of E. coli, which is one of the major host cell line that is often used to express a foreign gene. So what does recombinant DNA technology mean? You insert a gene which does not belong to E. coli into the E. coli cell and let it be kind of transcribed and translated into a final product. Now, this product can be either produced in an inactive form, as is shown at the bottom, which is called as inclusion, or as an active protein, which can then be secreted outside the cells. This is a typical way a bacterial cell produces a biosimilar product or a biologic product. Now, it has to go through various purification steps because it will also come with a lot of host cell proteins and host cell DNA that needs to be removed. Likewise, if you go to the next slide. So this productivity is one of the major kind of area where companies are focusing. They want to make sure that the cell that produces these products give out the product in a large quantity because economies of scale has to be done. And over the years, a mammalian cell which also can produce a lot of products such as the monoclonal antibody and other products which require glycosylation. This has the level of productivity has been continuously expanded. Every 1.5 years, it has doubled, and it is going in this order. And this is why it is desirable to have new technologies that come in order to improve the productivity per cell. Because if the productivity per cell increases, the overall manufacturing productivity increases at the same kind of cost of goods, giving a lot of profitability to the company. Going to the next slide. So here is now developments of new technologies such as the perfusion technology, as well as gene editing by using CRISPR. So if you look at how things have shaped, just as you saw earlier, telephone industry used to have massive amounts of setups, which has now been moved into a single handset or mobile unit. Just like that, even the manufacturing industry has moved from huge bioreactors or fermenters to a small bioreactor, as you should see over here on to the right. So going ahead, you can see that there is a miniaturization of the manufacturing setups, leading to lesser of capital investments, and yet the making of the products has considerably increased. Going forward. So you can see this has been actually been tried out by many companies where perfusion reactors have been set up with a smaller bioreactor, almost to replace 1,000-liter or 1,000-liter bioreactors. Here is a schematic of downstream purification, which is which I'm sure you must have looked into during your studies. This upstream process is happening by tailor for a single cell bank, that is desired, depending upon the productivity required, depending upon the kilogram of products required, and so on. And the downstream purification, where actually you eliminate the cells, you harness the supernatants, you process the graphic conditions in order to purify the product to almost greater than 98% purity, and then making sure that you exchange it with a kind of a physiologically acceptable buffer systems that can give most immediately to the product, and then it is kind of shipped under different storage conditions to whatever the final use destinations are. Going to the next slide. Now, how do you look at these products? It's always looked at by comparison with the originator product. Because and you make sure that the biosimilar that you have produced is similar to the originator product, you have the assurance that originator product some part of but you must demonstrate, the companies are made to demonstrate a strong similarity to that of the reference product. Hello? Yeah, sure. Okay. Going to the next slide. Here are some biobetters that are in the market, which are nothing but improved versions of the biosimilars, and we would be there is a good interest that has come about in many companies developing them. Going forward. I would go to the second last slide for the benefit of the students. If you can see. Yeah, one more. One more, please. Keep going. Yeah. This is something that I would like to put down for the students, that will be kind of working in biopharmaceutical vaccine companies. Here are some illustrations of where is the need for qualified people who can do all the jobs that are shown in the that please. One more. I think that slide has been stopped.
Thank you, Dr. Rustam Modi. It's really interesting and stimulating talk. And I hope when you get time, you come our, Naipar Mohali, and we'll be really delighted to host you, and our scientists are looking forward to interact with you. Thank you again for taking your time and giving the talk. Thank you, sir. And now I'm going to invite Dr. Girish Sahani to give a talk. Dr. Sahani is known to me for a long time. He was the former Director General of CSIR. He was also the Director of Intake Chandigarh. Dr. Sahani actually, revolutionized CSIR in terms of product development. But just I want to give you a very brief account of his educational background. He did PhD from IISc Bangalore. He did postdocing in University of California and then Rockefeller University. He has done a lot of interesting work, particularly on streptokinase and fourth generation antithrombotic clot busters. So he is the fellow of INSA, Bangalore Academy, National Academy of Sciences, Allahabad. He's highly decorated. I can keep giving you his achievements, but it is most important to say that he's probably one of the most successful CSIR Director General who really pushed for product development, and his own work as well as his vision and leadership is exemplary in terms of product development in India. With these few words, I welcome Professor Girish Sahani. Girish, please start.
Yeah, thank you, Dulal. Great pleasure to be here today, especially because this is a very special occasion, Azadi ka Mahotsav, and the Honorable Minister also gave a very inspirational and very practical talk, which would pave the way for NIPERs to enter a new phase. I know the NIPER Mohali for many decades. As I joined IMTech 1990s, early 1990s, this institute was a beacon for pharmaceutical research and development. In Punjab University also, the Department of Pharmacy was really a great department under Professor Harkishan Singh. Today I want to compliment and give my best wishes to all the NIPERs, their students, their faculty, and this whole chain of laboratories that has now been replicated from basically the original NIPER, the multidisciplinary faculty that NIPERs has. And of course, as you embark on a new road plan, I am privileged to get a chance to talk about biopharmaceuticals. I am a part of a very distinguished array of speakers, and I am very privileged to be a part of that group. I will share with you a little bit of my own experience and a few thoughts, especially with respect to young faculty members who have in front of them their whole career, and they have to make strategic choices as to whether what proportion of their interest would go towards teaching and research and what proportion to product development. It has always been a dilemma. And I remember as I started my own career in CSIR in the early 90s, there is always the lure of running a lab which is almost entirely focused on high quality research, whose outcomes and outputs are very high grade publications, trying to solve problems in biology, biochemistry, etc., as I began. But then because of the philosophy of CSR, I got lulled and lured to product development. My own story has been largely one of satisfaction, but there were hurdles in the way, there are always challenges. And my short little account will focus on that journey. Okay? Can I see the first slide, please? Am I audible all right?
Yes.
Hello? Can I
Yes,
get the
you
first
are.
slide? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, sir. Dr. Dua. Nice to have you here. Yeah, can I get the first slide, please? It is not yet come in my screen. Yeah. There is a great opportunity today. India is the pharmacy of the world. We have distinguished ourselves because of our scientists in many national laboratories who generated smart processes for small molecular weight drugs. The generics revolution, CSR had a great contribution to it, so had many other laboratories. Industry participate in the opportunity. And after 20 or 30 years, we are the world leaders in generics. We are also very advanced in biogenerics or biopharma products, which are basically the biological generics. Once patented molecules, macromolecules, antibodies, therapeutics, etc., become off patent, our industry used that opportunity to make smarter, economical processes to make biosimilars. And this revolution is what we talked about in the Dr. Modi talked about, and we are all proud of that. But the opportunity for biosimilars, although it exists, although it has brought us to a great level of prominence, is slowly waning. The pie is shrinking. There are many other countries also doing it. In fact, some of the MNCs are also doing it. And they are getting their foot in the door in the developed markets to a greater extent than what we probably can manage. So there is a great challenge here with our vast capabilities of academic research, reasonably high facilities in the national laboratories, and policy push. We need to enter the next phase or the next element of the rainbow, as I called it. Can we move from smart processes to innovative biopharmaceuticals? Can we, from bio-followers, become bio-leaders? That is the point that I want to discuss today. And an overwhelming resolution that I will propose is that we are absolutely poised to exploit it and move in this direction and become world leaders. Next slide, please. I don't have to reiterate this, it's very self-evident. There is a whole array of molecules which constitute biopharma. Antibodies, recombinant growth factors, protein hormones, vaccines. Vaccines, we just know that in the last 2 years we have made very strident progress in that, and that kind of journey is still onwards as government has openly and very vigorously supported vaccine manufacture. I have a feeling, as do most of us, that in the next 5 years we will emerge as bio leaders in vaccines. Next slide. Over 50% of all drugs will be biopharmaceutical in next 10 years. This is the opportunity. We have the experience in pharmaceutical sciences. We have the experience in biosimilars. We have a whole generation or two of excellent scientists, experience, industry that knows that it can do things, wonderful things and deliver, policy changes that are necessary. So this whole atmosphere today is poised for a next revolution in biopharmaceuticals. As student, if I were a student today in a NIPER, I would feel very optimistic. If I were interested in biology, if I were interested in chemistry, if I were interested in the rigor of medicinal production and control processes, the future belongs to me. Next slide. We all know that biomedicine is very efficacious because it's very specific. That's how Mother Nature designs its molecules. It targets very specifically, sterically onto the target receptor or whatever. And that is where the great potential of biomedicine is. Small molecular weight medicines and molecules, they basically go and bind to all sorts of niches on proteins and receptors, and you get a lot of side effects. So biomedicine is something that if we study enough, we go deep enough, we reasonably master the technology, we can reap the bonanza. Next slide. This is something that I just touched upon. So what we need to overcome the approaching saturation in biogenerics, there is a lot of potential still, but huge number of companies have kind of crowded the bandwagon. They need to be encouraged. It will lead to very affordable medicines, not only for India, but for the whole world. But as China is doing, many other countries are doing, innovation in process development has to go to innovative approaches to increase value of new molecules. So what do? Fundamental biology, deep insights in science, mechanistic cell biology, etc., leads to new drug discoveries in biomedicine. It requires very long traditions of dedicated research, just as some of the Western countries have. And I think we will reach there in another 10 to 20 years. But what is the immediate potential? The immediate potential lies in tinkering, engineering biosimilars into biobetters, making or superimposing additional properties into well-known molecules, using the tools of molecular biology, cell biology, as well as molecular redesign, protein engineering and molecular redesign. Now, these are all traits and capabilities which our academic institutions have in plenty. Some of our best scientists, the world's best scientists in these areas exist in our country. Our students who do their graduations and post-graduations in biology and pharmacy and biochemistry and biophysics, and they manage to do a PhD and postdocs in good labs, we have them in plenty. We have to create a platform for innovation in biosimilars. That is a message I am trying to give you today. With the help of industry, with the help of leadership, political leadership and policy changes, the right policy changes, I think we are poised to do that. So as academics, as students and faculty members and leaders of institutions, we have to create a platform for biobetters and biosimilars, of course. Biosimilars is something that is bread and butter. It is something that gives you the capability to go on to become leaders in biobetters. Next slide. I don't have to spell out why innovation is necessary. What does innovation lead to? When innovation in lab and innovation in industry join hands, you create humongous, unimaginable value. Some of our Indian industry is creating it already, but I think a revolution is needed. A revolution is bound to come in. The participation of academia, it takes two to tango. Industry is ready. Industry wants our best scientists to tie up with them, help them, gain their confidence and vice versa, and take us into the future where we create great value from science through technology, through government encouragement. I think, therefore, all these things are now set for what I'm going to talk about, and probably give a small little example, very humbly, of course, from my own experience as a scientist. Thank you. Next slide. India was a leader in medicine. We all know that. It's not a stuff of imaginative folklore. Modern medicine, modern pharmacy, pharmaceutical sciences, based on plants, which is such a great rejuvenation in the world today, largely arose from earlier civilizations, especially Indian civilization. Not even China. The Chinese civilization actually borrowed from the Indian civilization. Our knowledge base came from our Ayurvedic tradition. We have to revive it. Next slide. As we are indeed doing so. We were also leaders in engineering. This is another example. I will not dwell too much on this, but strike a note with the young people that we should be proud of our history, and we have to resurrect it and bring it to fruition again in our own generation. Next slide. Metallurgy was another great example. There are many examples. For example, this metallurgical revolution actually fed the Japanese samurai and their swords making and all that. The West borrowed it. So we have everything to be proud from our heritage. And there was an interim period in which we went into a little bit of a slump, but we are reviving it. Next slide. In science, we are globally in a very strong position. Nanotech, publication record, mega projects, and of course in biotechnology. BIREC was I especially mentioned BIREC. It came out of one of our leaders, Dr. M.K. Bhan, and the current leadership too, who have, BIREC has fueled at the laboratory level, at early stage biotechnology, a new revolution. Next slide. We had the green revolution, where it was not our science, but our system, our platform, our focus, our ambition that brought about a revolution. Next slide. The white revolution. We didn't get, when we were kids, we didn't get enough even, milk to go around. And now we are the largest producer of milk. So this is another revolution. It came from harnessing of technology and marketing opportunities and new business models for the betterment of our population. Now that is what biosimilars has done. That is what our generics have done, not only for our country, but for the whole world. And we want to replicate in bio-betters, in engineered new products. There has to be a will, there has to be leadership, there has to be the right soil, and the right soil means our academic institutions. Our academic institutions have to tell the government that we are ready, that we have a plan, that we will grow the first sapling, and from the sapling will come trees, and from the trees will come great fruits. That is how the whole value chain improves. Next slide. So what I'm suggesting is that we need to copy our own success, learn from it. We need to copy from the science, which is a global common treasure, the literature and the common thing that is available, the common knowledge base, and we address our needs, poor man's needs. Our big opportunity is we produce affordable medicine. Industry gains not by huge, humongous profits, but by volume-driven business model, and our common man gains. See, if you are a millionaire, there is no problem. You can get a medicine worth lakhs of rupees from international market and be benefited. Think of the poor person who cannot even buy 2 courses of antibiotics. How would you think? How would she think of buying a biosimilar or bio-better? Can we take the same principles, best science, best process, smart copying, smart improvement, and produce the next generation of bio-betters? Next slide. Now, if you look at the S&T scenario in the country, 30 to 50 individual excellence, then slowly self-reliance, again self-reliance has come today, very, very much needed. Then we had a whole IP generation phase, which CSR led actually in the 90s as we globalized. But today we have to compete with the whole world. Not necessarily using the models that big pharma uses internationally, but our own model, Hindustani model, Atmanirbhar model, smart model. Now, how do we do that? Next slide. Now, if you want to take lab discovery, innovation, which is a challenge, and take it to the market, you have such multiple steps. Just focus on these. Innovation is a great first step. You have to have the right seed, but then you have to have a business concept, as early as possible. You need to have a business connectivity. You need to secure the patents. The patents are like recipes. You have a very good recipe, but it should work. It should not be just a recipe which does not work, but it's a recipe at the end of the day. But a good recipe will lead to a good dish. So you need to have an organization, a platform, funding, process development, clinical trials, marketing, capturing the market, and then iterative improvements in this whole cycle. That's iterative improvements in this whole cycle is key to getting a major slice of the cake. See, if you look at the international companies, every 3 years, 5 years, they will launch a new, better product. Because of the research and application, because of greening approaches, smart approaches, supported by policy, so that they continue to dominate the market. So we have dominated, we have kind of created a certain amount of respect and confidence in the production of these type of molecules. Now, can we use it for the next revolution? Can we think smart? Can we use our scientists? Can we use it to link to market needs and the need of the common man? And then take it up to scale, use business models, and compete with the big boys. And compete with the big boys as we have done in pharmaceutical, early stage pharmaceutical, small molecular weight thing. But remember, in small molecular weight pharmaceutical sciences, we have also not been able to launch new molecules. So innovation is extremely important, and that innovation will come from academic labs. It will not easily come from industry, because industry has to mature and create a huge surplus before it starts investing in R&D. As our minister, honorable minister said, the labs have to not only help small industry, MSME, etc., we have to link with big industry. Next slide. I just wanted to tell you that India has produced new medicines also. These are some few examples. Okay, I will not spend too much time. I think we have some time paucity. But this slide basically tells you that we have examples of new medicines, both small molecular weight, plant-based, medicinal, traditional medicine, and also biotech medicines. Next slide. This is a diabetic formulation which is selling very well. It is based upon Ayurveda. With CSR, labs in Lucknow, CDRI, NBRI, CMAP, etc., they came together and produced, and it has been licensed. It's selling very well. It is producing very good, efficacious results. Next slide. Next slide. Now we have a challenge that we have to produce APIs in the country. The government is seized of the matter. A lot of movement has happened, and this is a result of policy decisions. The capabilities of Indian scientists, the capabilities of Indian industry are being harnessed to address the value chain, supply chain issues posed by various crises internationally, including China. And Indians our industry and our academy are best suited to address it today. And I am pretty sure that we'll be able to lick it. Next slide. Now, if you look at the industries that are there, which are world dominating industries, there are already hundreds of people, hundreds of small industries and startups in the country which are doing smart work for biosimilars. Biocon is the only one here you can actually put. There are others aspirants too, certainly Sun Pharma, etc. But then the point here is the major companies are all non-Indian. And the quality, no, I won't say quality, the quantity of revenue they generate is humongous. But let it also be said and noted that the future is in the Asia Pacific region, China, India, maybe to some extent Japan, other countries. So we have to be optimistic here. Next slide. This is basically just a map where we show the green regions as the next zone in which biopharma leadership will emerge. Next slide. The world market is at 300 to 350 US dollars billion. What is the outcome and output of Indian industry is probably less than 5%, but it can increase with some smart planning and forward planning that we are thinking of doing today. And as academicians, we have to be very smart and focused. Next slide. Monoclonal antibodies, great segment. This has a great opportunity because it does not present very strong scientific challenges of the kind that you do with other biopharmaceuticals like hormones, peptides, etc., because each type of biomolecule will be unique. But monoclonal antibodies are large green opportunity area because they are basically the same design except the antigen binding pocket. So scientific discoveries and the basic information, fundamental knowledge in antibodies is there in the common pool. The technology to produce them in large amounts is already there with some of our industry. They are already producing this thing. But institutions can go to monoclonal antibodies in their various facets and start making new antibodies. Now, this is one area when you make a new antibody, in the sense that it is targeted against a new antigen, you can file a patent on it. This is a great opportunity, but we have to align ourselves to this opportunity. And I think we need to have a working group with industry participation in NIPER, I think, where we can make strategies by which we can produce technology, patents, which our industry will be in a position to use and exploit. Next slide. This is another area which is very opportune. A lot of companies are working on it. The fundamental challenge is the inflammatory process in human beings, and that leads to a number of problems, which is cancer, macular degeneration, immune disorders, etc., etc. There is a great opportunity to look at inflammation science holistically and design and search for smart new remedies. This is where all our cell biologists, our immunologists, who are so good in terms of publishing papers, can also align their cerebral strengths and think of and dream of new products. Next slide. So what we need for advantages for fostering innovation? I mean, I can venture to say that we need to have, when innovation comes from small groups, the breakthrough innovations don't necessarily come from mega science. So the breakthrough, the insight, the first glimmer to produce patents is always or almost always a virtue of small groups, whether they are in industry, whether they are in academia, whether they're in colleges, whether they're anywhere. That is why small industries are bought by big fish and then they take it to the market. Government policy support is very necessary. Of course, we all know that. This whole IPR revolution that started, it led to generics and our being a great leader in the world in terms of pharmaceutical sciences came from a government decision to support process patents. And business tie-ups are very necessary. I think we need to get the respect of industry and vice versa. There are groups within the country who have such respect, especially in the past. People who brought in the technology, smart process technology, came from a few labs in industry. Some of these leaders went and started new industry and from academia. And then you have to have a combination of speed and focused action by regulatory bodies. This is one gray area which we need to look at, because regulatory bodies have to be smart and cater to a fast track approach. In the last 1.5 years, we have seen we are capable of doing it. And if we are able to do it for the sunrise area, as it were, biopharmaceuticals, biobetters, I think it will give a great fillip to this whole value chain. Now, I will spend about 10 minutes, with your permission, on some of my own personal experience. When I started my career, I I realized that cardiac diseases are very, very important, extremely. I don't know how this is zooming ahead. Maybe it's an indicator for me to wind up my talk. Maybe we can go to the last slide then. Thank you very much. Is it artificial unintelligence or maybe a trigger happy?
I would like to thank sincerely to Dr. Girishani, and I think I want to invite you to come and talk to us as soon as possible. And this is a standing invitation. When you are ready to come, please do come. So, because we are running late, we will start the next lecture. And before that, I just want to make one more time, thank you, Girish, for a short notice you came and delivered a wonderful lecture that everybody enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now it is my privilege now to introduce Dr. Dinesh Dua. He is Executive Director, MS Nectar Life Sciences Limited, India. Dr. Dua is currently the Executive Director of MS Nectar Life Sciences. Immediately prior to joining NLL, he was the Managing Director of Akron India Private Limited. You know, he has a really long CV and outstanding achievements. And since we are really getting late, I do not want to take his time. Only couple of lines, maybe think that he is a wonderful supporter of, or probably one of the best supporter of Naipar Mohali. He has served us in many different capacities, and he is also board member and director and vice president of prestigious Rotary Club, Chandigarh, India. He is a philanthropist, and all kind of accolade can be added to him. And I invite Dr. Dua to give his talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello, Dr. Dulal?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So I will pass through whatever customarily has to be stated. Thank you very much, and a deep gratitude to Dr. Dulal Guha, the distinguished faculty of Naipar Mohali, with whom we have a deep-rooted connect, an excellent connect, directors of different Naipars, students, ladies and gentlemen. After such a phenomenal presentation by my friend, philosopher and guide, Dr. Girishani, it's my job and challenge to finish off in the next 10 minutes, and I'll try and do that. I'm going to skip a lot of slides, so kindly bear with me, going forwards. Let me just handle it. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, has stated, and I quote, India's pharma industry is an asset not just for India, but for the entire world. We've seen that during the COVID infestations, particularly demonstrated in the last 2 years. It's played a leading role in reducing the cost of medicine. Multiple $1 trillion, not $1 billion, and I'll show you how. You see, from, as Dr. Girishani said a little while earlier, that from import dependence, the mission is to be independent and have dominance in APIs, KSMs, and intermediates, be a vibrant Indian pharma landscape, be a constituent, a very large and exciting constituent of a US $5 trillion economy by 2024, but obviously because of COVID, the goalpost shifts to 2026. The schemes which are going to help you to do that are going to be Make in India, Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana, Skill India, Bharatiya Jan Yojana Parishad, and there couldn't be a better opportunity than Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav and the Naipar Week, sort of commemorating the illustrious development that India has undertaken under the dynamic premiership, like a CEO of a country, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Indian exports at 24 billion, unparalleled, growing at 16% CAGR. We are the masters in immunization programs, increasing the expectancy of life in developing countries. Domestic market is equally divided into $23 billion. Very proud to say that institutions like CSIR, Gireshji is a class example of that. PSUs, NIPERs have been responsible for the diffusion of R&D technologies and manufacturing capabilities. Post-liberalization, India still imports things like paracetamol, I mean, for fever, metformin for diabetes, and penicillins for infection. What else can you be asking for in terms of where we are vis-a-vis Chinese, you know? So therefore, and look at what we've done over the years. 36% lesser disability adjusted life years, fantastic. 100% eradication of polio, you know, thanks to the Indian industry. 95% lower treatment costs like hepatitis C, leukemia. 2.7 million jobs created directly and indirectly in the last 1 decade. US dollar 10 billion, you know, foreign exchange to the exchequer, and $2 billion worth of FDI as of last year, and much more to come going forwards. We are 60% global vaccine production. I need not talk about COVID vaccines. We're very proud of SII, very proud of Bharat Biotech, Zydus Cadila, and the likes of them who have trailblazed and led to 900 million people being vaccinated. Where in the world do you find that? You don't find it nowhere. It's only India. WHO demand, 90% of measles vaccines met by India. 40 to 70% of DPT, BCG met by India. 25% of the medicines made in UK are made in India. Every second pill, every second capsule, every second intravenous injectable in the United States in the generic space is contributed by India. Very, very proud moment indeed. And 37% of the patients of AIDS in Africa are taken care of. Now, what is the size of the industry? It's $42 billion. And in base case scenario, if we just grow at 8%, although we're growing at 16%, we'll reach up to 80 to 90 billion dollars. And if we grow even less than the current rate of growth, both in exports as well as in domestic, of about 16%, 11-12% by 2030, we will reach up to 120 to 130 billion dollars. No mean achievement by any yardstick. Our share of the wallet globally, from current 4.4% by value and almost around 15% by volume, will go up to 8.4% in terms of value, and by volume close to about 20-25%. No mean achievement at all. I'll skip through the rest of the stuff which is written here. Opportunities for Indian pharma in the formulation space. Upcoming patent cliff, $225 billion or $251 billion, still to come off patent. We have to get our footprints into large markets like China, which is the second largest market in the world. And of course, you know, there's so much opportunity in Ayushman Bharat, launched by Honorable Prime Minister, which is going to be a game changer for sure. And of course, as eminently stated by Dr. Rustam and Dr. Sani, biosimilars, specialty drugs, gene therapy, that's going to be the future. The top 10 drugs in the world are indeed biologics. And if we don't get our footprints right there, we'll not get there. And we'll have to compete with the likes of Bangladesh and Vietnam. This is the performance in exports. I'll skip this. I'll skip this also. And I'll just take a minute here. Anti-infectives, cardiac, gastrointestinal, anti-diabetics, and so on and so forth are in the pecking order in terms of the share of the wallet. Now, trends, this is very important. Trend number one is specialty drugs have a prescription share of 2%, but market share of 50%. Oncology, viral hepatitis, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune, which costs between US 100,000 to 200,000 patients per year. 90% of the prescriptions are for generics in US. Top pharma drugs are biotechnology in origin. Top therapy area today, ladies and gentlemen, is oncology at $186 million. Now, majority of our drugs, which are listed under National List of Essential Medicines, are imported. Now, that's a crazy scenario. Paracetamol, metformin, ranitidine, and so on and so forth are still imported from 30-35% in terms of intermediates, APIs, as well as KSM, key starting raw materials from China. This is where we are vulnerably dependent. Look at the list of common drugs. They're all being imported from China in terms of you know, the APIs, KSMs, intermediates. If we continue to import at this rate, we're going to go vulnerably to $163 billion from the current state of affairs. Hormones, CNS, antituberculosis, vitamins, neurology. China has ganged up against India to increase the prices, and the prices of these vital ingredients, APIs, intermediates, and KSMs, are at least 10 to 15% higher than Europe or US for that matter. And if the current trend continues, I said, at the same rate, we will be really, really economically and otherwise dependent on China. Therefore, I'll skip all of this and come to this. The need of the hour is flow chemistry, fluorinated intermediates, chemical research, catalysts, biocatalysts, and stereoselective. We heard it in a great deal. Strain development, biologics, and of course, green chemistry. No questions about that. This is that concentric circle will tell you all about these initiatives, and E3 is the focus, as Girishi also very eloquently stated: economy, efficiency, and of course environment. So these are the platforms that we've structured for the country to move forwards in future. Policy framework, industry academia relationship and interaction and engagement. I will not go into the details because Girishi's already stated amply. What are the challenges? The import dependence of medical devices, API, bulk drugs, and R&D. We need to graduate to innovation through. There is so much sitting out there in the NIPERS, All India Medical Sciences, CSIR, many more, which needs to be harnessed, taken out, and worked out with the industry so that, 95% of the innovation, ladies and gentlemen, in the world, all over, may it be Japan, may it be Korea, may it be US, Europe, etc., has come through through the academia. If they can do it, why can't we do it? And we are second to none. So I'll skip all of these slides, just concentrate on Atmanirbharta. Based on the clarion call of the Honorable Prime Minister, DOP came out with production-linked incentive of close to about $7 billion for API intermediates and KSMs about a year ago, and recently, about a couple of months ago, PLI-2. PLI-2 is basically focused on the innovation, not renovation, biologics as well included in there. And PLI-1 basically focused on making sure that we are self-sufficient, Atmanirbhar. Now, with this, the expected outcomes are import substitution, drug security, 53 bulk drugs to be made in our country, and pharma parks to be taken care of. This is all about the PLI-2. You see tremendous amount of surge in biopharmaceuticals, complex excipients, APIs, KSMs not covered earlier, repurposed drugs, and so on and so forth. And there is an inbuilt flexibility in there to make sure that if there is some idea which is not being covered in there, you're more than welcome to do that. So therefore, R&D stimulus to be provided by the government. Our recommendation from the industry side is innovation, incubation, mentoring, skill building, and parks and clusters. Some bit of it has been achieved, but it's a long distance to go forward. In our sincere appeal to the government, now the last slide, last but not the least, minimum domestic API component in government policies is there. Please make sure it takes a prominent place. PLA addresses it, but there's so much more to do. Facilitate private sector involvement. Environment and related laws to be reformed, which has been done partially. Technology upgradation fund, DBT funding, CSR agreements. A lot has been done under the leadership earlier of Dr. Girish Sani. Much more needs to be done. Contract research and manufacturing opportunities, enhancing API portfolio options for the Indian industry, facilitating lower cost to the API industry, because that is the key. And of course, duties and taxes set off for R&D, 200% tax deduction, which was the case, but I don't know why government withdrew it. Drug repurposing and drug licensing. So this is basically how it's going to be worked out. Institutes, industry, collaboration will take you far. R&D, pharma, and government, they have to work together in a manner which is cohesive and which is supportive of one another. This is something which Dr. Girish has already explained, so I'll skip that. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. And one of these days, I keep coming to Chandigarh, at least for 10, 12 days. And Dr. Dulal, thank you for getting me here. I will make sure that I go into further details with the dearest students who are the future leaders of the life sciences industry to make sure that we make it more interactive. Thank you very much and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Dinesh Dua. And we need your help definitely for our journey. And as you mentioned that it is the collaboration between the industry and academia that will make the impact. And you are the best connection for the industry. So please feel free to visit us, and you are always our most invited guest. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and adjusting us. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Professor V.K. Paul to give the keynote address. Professor Vinod Kumar Paul is a physician scientist and is a member of Niti Aayog. He is a doctor, he is a researcher, he is fellow of all important Indian science and medical academies, including INSA, Bangalore, Allahabad, and Indian Medical Academy. He is an expert of neonatology working at AIIMS New Delhi. He is also an expert of public health in India and international health expert. As a member of Niti Aayog, he is paying attention to the health and nutrition subjects. He contributed towards formulating the Poshan Abhijan and Ayushman Bharat Yojana. He is also chairperson of the National Task Force on COVID-19. Dr. Vinod Kumar Pal chaired the Technical Advisory Group on Women's and Children's Health for WHO. Dr. Vinod Kumar Pal is recipient of all important fellowship of science and medicine. He was conferred with many awards, including Ishan Dogra Maharshi Family Health Foundation Prize, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Centenary Award for Excellence in Biomedical Research. With these few words, I invite Dr. Paul to give his keynote address. Thank you, Professor Paul. Please.
Thank you very much. Namaste. Good afternoon. Just want to confirm that I am audible. Namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you for this superb opportunity, unique opportunity to be able to speak to the family of NIPERs in our nation and this large community of scientists, students, and enablers of change in the sphere of pharmacological sciences, pharmaceutical industry, and through that to serve the cause of health in the country and in the world. A lot has been spoken since morning, and I have been catching glimpses of the speeches, including the speech of the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Health Minister Sahab, and also our Secretary and distinguished colleagues who spoke before me. I would like to wear today, on this occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav lecture series, the hat of a fellow academic. For ideas around policy, a lot has been mentioned, and in the last presentation, specific schemes have been mentioned. I don't want to go in that direction. But I would like to wear the hat of an academic amongst you. Some of you may not know, but I had a long stint of 48 years at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, starting as a medical student and then moving on to be a faculty in pediatrics and neonatology and then head of the department before I moved to Niti Aayog. So this is the hat that I would like to wear today because I happen to spend an important part of my life, most of my life in fact, in a center of excellence. We must, before I do that, I like to emphasize that we must salute, I salute the contribution of India, pharmaceutical family, industry, and research and development fraternity in serving the cause of human health and human survival. The leadership given by the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical institutions, and scientists as being the pharmacy of the world is very well known, and I salute that as a stellar achievement of our nation in these 75 years. But so much more needs to be done. And in that space, the expectation from the NIPER is truly to stimulate education and research, as has been stated by more than one speaker. I would like to look at the functions of the NIPER in four boxes. And I'd like to make a mention of each one of them very briefly. Firstly, I would like to begin by saying our role as centers of education, centers of excellence in education. And here, our endeavor, your endeavor has been to attract the best students which you get and to nurture them to become scientists in the field of pharmacology and pharmaceuticals. It will be very important for us as teachers and professors that we create students, we enable the learning of students in the methodologies that are current. I would like us to move in the direction of pedagogy, which is practice-oriented, immersion-linked, experiential, hands-on in the laboratory, hands-on in the industry as internships, and hands-on also in terms of experience and presence in real-life settings such as hospitals and community health sites. I would like us to look at the best models of education in our sphere. I give this example because in the sphere of medicine, we face, and that's from where I would draw the lessons, because I really would not know exact details of how the teaching and pedagogy is done in the NIPERS. But when I draw lessons from medicine, and I believe we are connected through that bond of healing, creating healing professionals in a sense, I would like to say that the experience in the hospital setting, experience in the community setting, small group teaching that is oriented toward problem solving, teaching which is oriented toward the concepts and not just the information, is at the heart of good medical education in our sphere. I would like us to see how that kind of a learning, experiential learning, immersive learning, practical learning is taken to its logical heights in the NIPERS, which are the centers of excellence in this sphere, and there is a lot of great future beckoning us, and you already have several laurels and several achievements that we are so very proud of it. I would like to see learning which is driven by curiosity, learning which is student-centered, learning where the weak students and the not so weak students have their own space for themselves, a learning which is group learning at times, small group teaching, learning which is by way of projects, learning which is driven toward concepts and not just information. I think that's a very critical point. I'm aware of learning even in the IITs through the experience of my son having been through an IIT and later Oxford and other places and MIT, that even in the best of our institutions, and here specifically IIT, I can say with certainty, the deeper learning which comes handy later on to find solutions is not there. In my sphere, I want you to think about it as a fellow academic teacher. I'm a teacher lifelong, trained so many young people. And my book, by the way, is the most popular and deep textbook for pediatrics. So I'm teaching almost the entire nation's child health. So it is said that, the deeper concept-based learning has issues in our nation, even in the best of institutions. And this becomes stark when we are expecting a professional, duly trained professional, to deliver in terms of, let's say, research or in terms of application of the science that we teach. I would like us to introspect whether we are making efforts in that regard or not. Are we embracing the best ways of training people, training students to imbibe and embrace concepts and not just information? In our sphere, the highest form of learning is the problem-solving learning. We see a patient, we take a decision, and that decision should be rational. That decision has to be correct, almost every time to the extent possible. And that is where all the knowledge of anatomy, physiology, pathology, microbiology, clinical methodology all comes together in solving problems. It's not about application. It's not about comprehension. It's not only about analysis or synthesis. And therefore, I would just pose this as a question. Are we making enough effort to look at the new ways of training our future graduates and postgraduate and postdocs that they can address larger problems? Are we training them for the larger expectation that so many speakers before me have highlighted? The minister himself highlighted this. Are we in that direction or not? Is there something missing? And I assure you, if we do this journey systematically as we did, we in the course of early 90s went through a transformation by way of medical education, faculty development, medical education, curriculum reform, assessment, etc. in our institution, and I think it helped us course correct to some extent, not holistically, but to some extent. I also would like to emphasize the need for appropriate tools and methodology for assessment. Students don't learn what you tell them to learn. They learn what helps them pass the examination. So the assessment should be such that it tests the competencies that you're training them for. Do we do that? That's the question that I would leave as a colleague for us to think through and someday get an opportunity to have a more discourse. Today it is one way, and I think it's very incomplete in that sense. My apologies. Someday we will sit together around the table and talk about these things. Are we doing enough in that direction? There is IT, there are MOOCs, there are hybrid models of learning. Are we using them optimally, or are we becoming victims of them? Or are we mastering? Do we have the ones that we need for our own nation and for our own priority? I would like this journey. I would like to see the education in NIPERs, though unique in every institution that individual NIPERs have, but a unique connecting thread of connectivity, but an education which is imparted in a manner and received by the students in a manner which is the very best in the world. So that's my first thought. And in that regard, we need to also listen to the student. In my institution, when I was a student, teachers' evaluation would be done. I don't know whether you do it or not. Teachers need to be trained on how to teach. Are we training in your institution teachers how to teach? Everybody cannot be a teacher but by acquiring a PhD. We need to learn how to teach. How do we conduct a small group session or a laboratory session? How do you do a small group teach? How can you make lecture more interesting and not boring? Lectures are among the worst forms of pedagogy, but that's what we have at the moment. So are we training our NIPER teachers to be good teachers in pedagogy? If not, can we work in that direction? Please pardon me if many of these things are being done. I'm proud because this is my first interaction with NIPER, but I do like to see that this should be an important part as we move forward. Do we excite the students to go beyond just scoring marks and getting their getting the certificate? In my field, this is a huge issue, particularly at the UG. So I'm guilty of coming from a system where actually we have not really cracked it optimally. The goal of an undergraduate today is to get a PG degree, and there is this menace and the devastating situation with regard to the coaching and other things. I hope you are protected from this. But that's my first point in this frank discussion. My second point relates to the research role that NIPERs have. Here again, a lot has been spoken, very nicely spoken by others. But the way I look upon research is three pillars of this. The central pillar is people and their competence, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The first pillar. The second pillar is really resources. But the third pillar is, do we generate enough ideas? And ideas don't happen necessarily only from the teacher or, only from the books. Ideas drive discovery. Ideas drive new invention, new solutions. So then it essentially boils down to an ecosystem where research and science pervades the institution. And I'm sure on that score, NIPERS would be scoring very, very high. I have no doubt about that. But I want to focus on the human resources part in terms of capabilities in imparting research. We at times assume that we know research. Here, in your case, it is about laboratory research. I'm sure there are no issues about it, but certainly in the space of trials and space of high quality clinical studies where I assume your graduates and postgraduates and faculty should take part and must be taking part, a lot needs to be learned. Do we have a course on formal course on, let's say, clinical studies? Clinical studies that are case series, case control studies, or clinical trials, randomized clinical trials, other forms of trials. Do we teach that systematically? At what level do we start? In the medical education space, this was a possibility. And when I was with the team of Board of Governors, we made it essential to have research methodology course for all the postgraduates, a formal course, starting with defining, defining causation, defining epidemiological indices, and then of course training them how to do studies, how to calculate sample size and do statistical analysis. My take here would be, is our faculty formally trained to undertake high quality clinical research in particular? Are there opportunities that we need to create for lab-based research opportunities and as well as clinical research opportunities? Do we have places where clinical research discussions would happen with clinicians, with epidemiologists? Do we have those connections? Do we have an exercise, at least at the postgraduate level, to how to design a valid clinical trial in terms of sample sizes, outcomes, safety, data safety monitoring board, ethics, and so on and so forth? It is the people who drive research. So, but the people can only drive good research if they know what they need to be doing it. So my request here, my input here today is really, are we systematically training our students and our faculty in the methodology, the deep methodology? There are levels of learning. I can do some simple statistics, but I cannot do complex statistics but as an institution, we need to have that kind of a central facility, central core available for us as statisticians and so on. Do we have that kind of a training even for undergraduates? Do we give opportunities for undergraduates to do simple studies? Do we give them small fellowships, summer fellowships, and so on? Do we have interface with clinicians? And I would again emphasize that NIPERS must have an interface with hospitals and clinical scientists, because that is where the fusion of sciences will happen. And the solutions happen when the fusion of sciences happen. Solutions don't happen in silos very often. The best ones happen when the science, multiple types of sciences meet, and the joint journey sort of starts. So my suggestion here is to introspect and see the training in research methodology, in research methods, research techniques, measurement, accurate measurement. In particular, in terms of clinical trials, the smart designing of the studies. And here again, I think the expectations of the nation is not only conventional pharmaceuticals, but also pharmaceuticals that are on the horizon, the gene therapies, the biosimilars, and the others. And are we creating our institutions to be prepared for those advances? And if not, can we work together to create opportunities in that regard? Do we have groups to work with? Do we work cross-sectorally? Do we work across NIPERS for a common protocol? Do we have a mentoring system available where interconnected research is possible? These are the same questions that I could ask within AIMS as well. So pardon me if I'm, if I'm being judgmental, because as I said in the beginning, I really would like to know more about your work. The third element is, of course, something that has been again spoken, is your interface with industry. I would just mention that it's so critical. Those bridges are required, and I'm sure a lot of that, those ideas will come from other speakers. But critically, because we are talking about specific products, and the specific products cannot go beyond to the people unless the industry interface is ensured and industry picks up those products. Otherwise, it stays in the laboratory. And then there is this valley of death that we have so many molecules in our laboratories which don't reach where they should be in the community to the people. And the bridge that you require to tide over this valley of death is the translational research, and often that is only successful if we have industry partners. So working with industry immersion, industry interface is very critical, and by doing this, you also strengthen the industry because you are able to pass on the best practices. The last expectation from NIPER is also the policy interface. And here I can say that I haven't heard any policy inputs from any NIPER or a group of NIPERs till date. I'm in the loop in this policy space, pharmaceutical policy and science and technology related to pharmacy. I like to see such initiatives coming from the group of you. You are the leaders. And pick on ideas that you think are so critical. Critical in terms of achieving the best potential in terms of education and research that I talked about a little bit, but also going beyond, preparing this nation for the real horizon where our pharmaceutical enterprise, industry, and R&D enterprise is seen wanting. We are good with generics, but where are we inventing the new molecules? That's the question you have been hearing, or you will hear from others as well. We have to be an R&D superpower. We have to be offering new molecules, new solutions, new technology-based, based products for the world. And there, I would like you to think as to what should be the path to achieve that. From where else would these things come? You are the thinker, the think tank, the thought leaders, opinion makers. So I request that in terms of policy around the issues that you deal with as the top-notch experts in this area, we would very much appreciate your thinking around the policy related paradigm. And this would be, your voice should be louder than what you currently perhaps have, let me say. And there are so many issues about regulation, issues about quality, issues about moving to the next level, building the research ecosystem to which I referred. NIPER network is only one such, but there are other places where research ecosystem of related sciences has to be there. So I would expect this to be also in the mandate of the NIPERs to educate the nation for the policy choices that must be made in this domain. It would be very, very critical. Last, before I close, is one aspect again coming from AIMS, is that we cannot as institutions only talk about excellence. We have to talk about excellence with values. We as teaching and training institutions, education institutions have dual role. Excellence in the field for which we are carved and created by the people of India, and for which their precious resources are being channeled for. But the other part is to create a culture which promotes values. Our students must get out with core values that the society expects. It is definitely very critical for medical students, but I'm sure it is critical for any student in any domain. Are we giving them, are we having an ecosystem in which values are imparted and embraced and nurtured? We like to ask this question. I ask this question with my postgraduates all the time. And that happens through role models. That happens how we as teachers conduct ourselves. Students do what we do, not what we say. Do we conduct ourselves in the manner in which that serves the purpose of the society in terms of core values, humility, commitment to the nation, commitment to the institution, punctuality, integrity, honesty, and so on and so forth. Truth as far as the research goes. Truth, true data, no fudging of data by any student, by anybody. Do we express that kind of a culture? And that is my last point really, that it is about work culture. It is about what an institution is great if it has a great work culture. In my institution, the departments which did basic science research, they are in a particular wing, if you have seen institution, above the director's wing, where I was nurtured by people like Dr. G.P. Talwar, by Dr. Veera Maligaswamy. We saw them, they were like legends to us, Dr. Painter, and so on. And the work culture in those buildings, you see our hospital, lights are never off. They are always alive. But even these blocks, the lights will never be off because there will be students working through the night. And I don't see that kind of a rigor even in my institution. Science, so it is about the work culture that we create. The science must pervade the heart and mind and the corridors of an institution like yours. I wish grand success to NIPERS. This is my heart-to-heart talk, and I hope I have not said something which is presumptuous. It is not meant to be. I'm just speaking to you as a colleague, as a teacher, and somebody who had the opportunity to be in a center of excellence, which succeeded in many ways, did not succeed in another way. It's not perfect. My institution is not perfect. But I try to embrace the role model, the values and the excellence that our role models created for us. Many of your institutions are in the early stages. And I tell you, the responsibility of the faculty and the leadership and the directors of early stage is very, very important. Because you set the standard. All my life I was 17th batch. There was very little aims at that time. Now it is something like 65 batches. So we still had the strands of the early teachers, and many of them were teaching us. What we did in our own humble way, and this would be coming from any of us of that time, and even later one, was trying to meet those expectations. So I'll give you one example of AIMS culture. When I say one I gave you, that even in the preclinical block, science block, the lights are never off because there are students working through the night. I used to go and do dissection of rabbits for enterotoxigenic E. coli at 4 o'clock in the morning to the animal house. So that's the culture. My institution, you'll find the senior most amongst us operating a beggar who was hit by a tractor at 3 o'clock in the morning because it needed the presence of a senior consultant and not a senior resident or a junior resident. That's the culture. That's the culture. There's nothing like Sunday or Saturday at our institutions. Nothing. We work every day. We should work every day. This is the culture and the conduct of teachers is, I think, the most important part of a great institution. I urge us all to be fulfilling that role to the extent that the God has given us energy. Thank you so much. Someday we will do this in person. If you invite me, I'd love to come. But apologies if I said something which you think was outside my domain or inaccurate or presumptuous. If that was not meant to be the reason, I thought I'd talk heart to heart. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Professor Pal, for giving an enlightening lecture. And I also want to thank you from bottom of my heart for accepting our invitation within a very short time. Thank you. Your highly insightful thoughts are going to inspire us for time to come. Your observation and directions are important for the growth of NIPERS. I really like the way you talk about innovation, teaching, and the development in NIPERS. We will try our best to follow your guidance and suggestion, and maybe with your permission sometime we'll get your direct input. I know you are very busy, but a few moments of you will really help us to cruise through this difficult time. And thank you again, sir, for giving this talk. Thank you. I would also take this opportunity to thank our other speakers from the morning. It is really a very good series of lecture. Dr. Rostam Modi, he took our invitation. I'm really thankful to Dr. Rostam Modi for giving the talk. Dr. Girish Sahni, and he is really a wonderful friend and is giving the talk in this meeting within a very short time. So thank you, Girish. Dr. Dinesh Dua, he is always accommodating from one day to another, and he gave us such a wonderful talk. Thank you, Dr. Dua. And finally, Dr. Vinod Pal, thank you for your keynote address. And with this, we conclude the first day talks, and it will be very important for me to thank our Honorable Minister of Chemical and Fertilizer, our Secretary, Madam S. Aparna, and Joint Secretary, and all the directors of all NIPERS, my colleagues, for attending this first day session. Thank you, and we are looking forward for the week-long lecture series. See you all tomorrow.